So at this point, we have our structure all set up, and we are going to be entering our models using VS Code. Now, I still have both of my command prompts open. I've got the one running the app, and I've got the other one with that virtual environment. That's the one running the app. And here's the one where I've got my virtual environment live. In fact, I'm going to go up a level here just to set myself up for what I need to do later. Our next step is going to be to create models. So models are simply classes. And in these classes, you are going to be defining fields. These will become columns in a table. So each class becomes a table, and each field becomes a column in the table. Django automatically creates a primary key for you, and it will be called ID. So you do not need to worry about the primary key. And in this particular project, you really don't need to worry about field types because we're going to be primarily dealing with text and date. But I did include a link to all the different field types that you can use because I think that it is useful for you to see lots of different examples. So you can see here's a student class. Okay, this is a model. And if you're looking through here, you can see what or how this is set up. Okay, and so we've got all sorts of different field types. Okay, and here's where a lot of them are starting. Big integer, binary, Boolean. So this isn't that different from SQL. Okay, you just have to kind of learn the syntax. Date time field, decimal field. One big difference is the word field is tacked on to the end, and it is case sensitive. Okay, there's an email field, a file field, so you can kind of take a look through here. And there are some examples of how you use these various field types. In addition, I have a VS Code example kind of showing what we're going to be doing. So we're going to create a class called topics, and you can see it's inherited from model. And then we have a field name that we're calling text, and that is a character field. And we're setting a max length of 200. And that we have another field called date added. That is a date time field. This little parameter, auto now add equals true, means that when we add a text entry, it's automatically going to do the date for us. Another thing about Django models is they pretty much all have a string method in the class that defines how the text should be retrieved. So if you have maybe a first name and a last name and you want them combined when you retrieve it, you would concatenate them on the return. Here, it's very simple. We're just returning the text as is. So we create the model. That's your first step. Then we need to tell our app that we have models. And we kind of need to let the app know where those models are located. And so again, in VS Code, we're going to be modifying settings. And we're going to be adding learning logs to the settings. So it knows that we have some models in there and some code that it needs to run. Now we only have to do this once. Okay. Then we are going to run migrations. Now, anytime you modify a model or create a new model, this is a two-step process. You have to, first of all, run a make migration command. And that actually creates the file that contains the code to create your table and create your columns. Okay, then you have to run a second command that actually implements the file that you created in Make Migrations. So it takes that file from Make Migrations and it applies it. So it actually creates the table itself. Okay, and so we are going to be doing that. So now we're going to go into VS Code. And you are going to want to navigate over to your CIT 228 folder, if you aren't there already. I have way too much open here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be opening up Learning Log. Okay, so here is all of my good stuff. And here's Learning Log. And I need to get into models. So I've got Learning Log, then I've got Learning Logs, and that is where models is located. So I'm going to open it. So not a whole lot in here. We do need to modify this. And so in our book, on page 385, there is code that we need to enter into here. The code is case sensitive, so you do want to be a little bit careful. And I'm going to pause this while I enter. All right, so I've entered my code. And so we're going to be creating a topic table, basically. And it's got a text and a date added column, 2 columns. Super important that you enter these correctly. They are case sensitive. And if you mix up the casing when you go to run your app, you are going to get an error. So be very careful when entering those. And here is our string method. It's just designed. This is like an internal thing into Django. It looks for that to tell it how to retrieve anything that you have that is text. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay, so that is my first model, and it will be converted into a table when I do the migrations. Before I do migrations, I do need to go into settings. And it does look like there's a lot here. All you have to do is kind of scroll down and try to find your installed apps. Because this is where, I'm going to put a little comment. This is my apps, and this is the system apps. And this is where I need to tell it about learning logs. Okay, and in your book, this is on page 386. And so I'm just going to key in single quotes here, learning logs. And we'll put a little comma in just in case later we want to add another one. And that is all we need to do here. So let's save. And I'm going to close that. And now I am ready to go back out. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go back out to my command prompt. Okay, and just double check to make sure that my virtual environment is active and I'm in the learning log directory. So this is like my main directory. Okay, now I'm going to execute the command to create the migration file, and that will have the information in it to tell Django how to create that topic table. So I'm going to use Python space manage.py, make migrations, learning logs. Okay, and I'm going to press enter. So this is what you want. Okay, it's got create model topic. Okay, this worked. I've got a file now in learning logs migrations. Migrations is a folder that was created. You can actually see it over here. Here's the migration folder. Okay. It created this file that basically tells Django how to create the topic table. And you can see it actually adds a primary key. Okay, so it hasn't created the table. Okay, all it's done is created the file that is going to instruct Django how to create my table. So to actually tell it to go ahead and run that code, I need to key in Python space manage.py space and migrate. And now it applied that code. Okay, you can see that it's telling me it's applying it and that it worked. It's okay. So I'm going to minimize this, keeping it running. And the next section is going to cover how to create an administrator account and then how to go out into the administrator section and add data to the topic table that we just created.